learning is an action that requires effort, and it's something that's not easy. Like, are you going to put in the effort? And sometimes if you don't have it, it's hard to get motivated.
This podcast is brought to you by HeyTaco, the only peer-to-peer recognition platform that uses tacos to help teams around the world share gratitude. I'm Doug.
I'm Una.
This is our podcast, Amazing Teams. Chris Hall, welcome to the Amazing Teams podcast.
Glad to be here.
Chris, it's awesome to have you. For those who don't know, two short things, but Chris is the CEO of Otus and a basketball fan. And then besides that, Chris, would you mind telling our listeners a couple more things about you?
Of course, yeah. So I was a 7th grade social studies teacher for 11 years, and I was one of the co-founders of Otus. And we'll talk more about Otus, but I now am the person leading the charge, trying to bring Otus to everywhere we can. And I have 4 kids. They used to be 4 under 4. Now they're 10, 8, and 6. So none under 4. So time goes too quickly. And we had our first soccer practice this week, and I'm amazed to believe that they're already grown up and talking to me about things that are way beyond that I thought they would be at this age. So
that's incredible. 4 under 4. I couldn't imagine. This is pretty timely for me. As Una knows, I have a son who is transitioning out of traditional school into an academy where it's more online education. And so this is great to be talking with you, Chris. Can you just, let's jump into your founding story, the founding of your company. Can you tell us a little bit how that started, what led you there, and how it's going?
Definitely. So as a teacher, I think the most important thing you need to do is connect to your students. You need to know who they are so that you can actually facilitate what they need to be able to lead them to what they need to do next. And it really is a really difficult task. I don't think it's easy to ever automate that or change that. Getting to know kids is something that takes a lot of dedication and time. During my first couple of years of teaching, I was fortunate enough to be able to use technology to help my teaching, to be able to make me a little bit more efficient, a little bit more effective. In 2010, which seems like a lifetime ago, we were the recipients of a grant that actually allowed us to go 1-to-1, which means one device to every kid. That is now the commonplace after, the pandemic. Most, students now have a device. But in 2010, it was pretty unique. When that occurred, 3 problems quickly emerged. One, getting to know kids with the technology actually became more difficult. And it actually allowed the technology actually spread out the information about kids into many systems instead of one system. So Otus, if you think of it kind of like a medical profile or a profile of a kid, will actually take all that information about a student and put it into one place. And now that it's in one place, you can see their behavior and their attendance and their grades and their performance, in addition to things like their interests and the things that really make a student tick. The other 2 problems that really emerged were, and I was a teacher for 11 years, my sister is a teacher, my wife was a teacher. Teachers have a wide range of skills. We're asking them to do so much. We're asking them to get to know kids. We're asking them to know technology, to be able to teach English, math, social studies. Technology or tech literacy is something that can vary wildly. Some can use everything and can do incredible things. Others are a little bit more tech timid. And if all of a sudden every kid has a device, we quickly learn, Doug, I'm sure you know this with your kid, they know technology is seemingly way too quick. They're the ones all of a sudden teaching us. So we need to make technology as easy as possible to decrease that friction of use. And then the third point, the third story here is the third problem is the data literacy. If you're trying to understand this information, and data is not a 4-letter word, even though it really is, but bad joke from a 7th grade teacher. It's really just information that can unlock insights. And if we can really make that data more accessible, we can really empower teachers to be more efficient. And so Otus solves those three problems. We put the information into one place. We allow you to really understand who a kid is. And we allow you to easily use technology to improve learning, improve teaching, and then we allow you to see insights more quickly so that you have more time to do what is most important, connecting with kids and helping them learn.
Got it. So would you say Otus is a data platform?
Yes. At the core of it, we are. But we're really a data platform meeting districts and teachers and families, because we also help families where they're at. And data is such a small word, but such a large impact or concept, because the data can be anything. It's how often are they showing up, or how are they doing in their reading or their writing or their ability to critically and independently think. So we really want to be able to take all of that information or data and put it into a really accessible place.
Gotcha. And so you just woke up one morning and said, "Hey, I want to start a data company." Like, how did that happen?
Well, that's an even funnier story. So I always like to help others. I think that's why I became a teacher. It's why I love coaching basketball. I really like to connect and help others and help remove obstacles in their path. And that, when I was a coach, it was teaching them how to, I was a basketball coach, teaching them how to dribble or to shoot, to remove obstacles so they could achieve what they wanted to achieve. I began to remove obstacles in my coworkers' path. I was the person who, hey, how do I do this with the technology? How do I do that with the technology? And that goodwill, kind of paid it forward. And the 8th grade English teacher in my building had a high school friend who was a big Chicago businessman and really was invested in tech. And so he, at the same time, was really interested in how technology could transform education in 2010, 2011. And at the time, it was digitizing textbooks or digitizing all of this curriculum and resources. And she asked me, hey, will you meet my high school friend? He's interested in ed tech, and I don't know anybody who knows ed tech better than you. And it turned out his name's Andy Bloom. He had 3 boys, all in middle school. They're now all in college. Again, time flies. And he had that tech background and connections. And all of a sudden, when he heard the problems and he heard that other industries like the medical industry had solved this with the fact that you go to a doctor, it's not like you go to a specialist and they have to rerun every single test. No, they have a profile about you. And it all of a sudden gives you a jumpstart, makes them more efficient, effective in terms of this care and in terms of knowing you. Also happens in like the sales industry with Salesforce. Every industry has this technology as kind of the hub, allowing collaboration and facilitation. And that hub was non-existent in education back in the day. And now, we're the ones really trying to pave the way, providing it. And it's really even more important now as we've come out of the pandemic several years ago, really figuring out where are kids at? What do they need? We really want to be empowering teachers because, teacher burnout, teacher exhaustion has never been higher. And we really need to equip them with the information and the tools they need to be doing what they love.
Chris, from the time that you were talking to the 10th grade teacher to the time that you were running Otus full time, what's the time gap in between?
Oh, yeah. As a history teacher or former history teacher, I sometimes make time seem really, really short. It's like all of a sudden you're looking at, world history and something that took place over 10 years. It seems like it took place in 2 minutes. So in 2010, the one-to-one pilot started. I didn't meet my co-founder until 2012. In 2013, we had a year of just talking. What is the problem? Learning about it, talking about it. We didn't really start building Otus until 2013. And it was just an idea at that point where it was used in my classroom. It was a free app on the App Store. We didn't really become a company until 2016, 17, and we really started selling in 2018. 2018, all of a sudden we started selling. Pandemic hit, changed everything. It really accelerated the use of technology because we all had to be remote. And now we're all of a sudden in 2024. And so that 10-ish years of history seems like a blur as my kids have grown up during pretty much the entire time. But hopefully that helped answer the question there.
It did. I have to ask you, did it ever feel like you're standing still? Because you said a year of talking, like it's a long time. It requires a lot of patience and discipline. And right now you can see a lot happened in that time. But in that moment, in that year when you were talking to your co-founder, did it feel like, is this ever going to happen? Are we ever going to actually build this?
I think it's a lot like kids. When you have really little kids, you always hear that the days are long, but the years are short. And in the moment, so I was a teacher from 2007 to 2018. So I actually taught while using Otus. So my days were long with brainstorming or prototyping or iterating, but it was also full of teaching and full of raising a family. So while the days were long, it actually never really seemed like it was taking that much time. There were some key moments. One of my worst predictions is, I'm a very honest person, but one of my worst predictions is I thought by 2020, everyone would be 1-to-1 in the United States. I thought 1-to-1 was going to happen. I went 1-to-1 in 2010. I was like, this is going to happen. This is going to just transform everything. It's not the panacea. It's not going to just solve it alone, but it's a key tool for us. But it didn't really become ubiquitous to the United States. It didn't become everywhere until 2020, 2021. And it took a world event to really push us there. And so those moments were slower. The embracing of student performance is been something that I think is happening in really cool ways, but the collective understanding as a group isn't always done as quickly as I hope. But the days are long, the years are short.
Doug, you probably feel that.
Oh yeah.
Statement.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Let's shift gears and talk about your team there at Otus. I'm curious about team size and if you are a traditional company, a remote company, a hybrid company. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Definitely. So as a company, we're about 55, 60 people. We were in person from about 2017, 18 until about March 2020. Our lease actually was up in June of 2020. So we then transitioned to a fully remote company.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. You couldn't beat the timing. We were actually in March looking at offices, because we were growing at the time. We had grown from about the year before, about 25 to about 35, 40. And all of a sudden we needed a bigger space. But then we went remote, and we're now a fully remote company. But that means that culture, which has been a big driving force for us, has become something that you have to make more intentional. When you're in office, it's really easy to just kind of build it naturally because you're around each other. You're able to, hey, let's grab lunch, or hey, we're going to do a coffee break, or we're going to do a happy hour. You're together. We had to become much more intentional of our culture when we went remote. And so that's been a big push for us because I think culture drives everything from my life as a father and with my family and my work as a teacher. And now, leading Otus, culture really is the driver that can unlock so much, because otherwise individuals can do quite well, but groups are really what can make a difference.
Chris, if you had to choose between a team of 5 all-stars that just got together for the first time to play, their individual statistics are off the charts, they should beat the other team by judging anything, or a team of 5 people that are maybe in the 80th percentile, but they play so well together, they get each other, they don't even need words to collaborate. Which one would you choose to coach for a season?
Well, I thought you were going to lead me a different direction there, because if we were going for a short burst like the Olympics, we had talked basketball. We want to talk, Serbia versus the United States. If we want to look at that amazing semifinal game, it's incredible to think that in a short period of time, it's really hard to coalesce. Now, if I had a full season, give me the all-stars. I'm going to take them because I think I can build that culture. Maybe I'm a little confident there, but I think over time it can be built. I think, though, that a group that is working amazingly together and has that rapport, has that equity in each other, is going to be able to outperform all-stars that are just thrown together. I think that over time you can make any group really coalesce. So I'm kind of towing that middle line. So for a single game, I want the group that doesn't even have to communicate because they have so much just telepathic connection. Over a full season, I believe as a facilitator of that group, I could really make them reach unparalleled success. That's
a very optimistic statement, that any group of great individuals can be made into a team, right? That's I'm not sure if I share that assessment in general, but I like your optimism. Doug, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you guys are the experts, both have coached in your past. Yeah, I don't know. I generally prefer working with people that share values and align with my beliefs. I kind of find it putting a bunch of all-stars together, they're probably not going to share many values and beliefs. They're all going to probably feel like they're the best, and that, conflict will probably arise real quick. But when you got the 80 percentile type people, I think you're going to have a better stream, a better rhythm. So I would probably put my eggs in the 80 percentile group of people.
Good thing we're on the same team, Doug, because we kind of feel the same.
I think a lot of it comes down from my teaching background. As a teacher, you're not really able to pick your squad or your team, right? I used to have 6 classrooms, about 25 in each. And I truly believe that with any group of kids, right, that I could make it work, depending, no matter who they were. So I think it is interesting, though. I think it would be a really good poll question to get some good feedback on.
How have you found that to be true or not true with your Otus team? Right. And it says you can pick people, right? But people are very different, and you can't be so picky. Otherwise, you're not going to have anyone working on the team, right? How have you found that the team has been able to perform, even with a variety of characters and personalities on the team, above a certain bar?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to keeping things simple. So we have 3 guiding philosophies or principles in our company. And so they are to be honest, which is really just being able to share authentically who you are, what you're thinking, being able to understand various viewpoints, being able to advocate for yourself, to be respectful. I always, these are the same things I use with my family and as a teacher, but to be respectful is not like, no, ma'am, yes, sir. It really is this understanding that everybody has insight and perspective to bring to a conversation. If that is a world-class engineer who has, experience in a fintech background, or if it's a former teacher who is one of our client success individuals, there is a way to respect and understand the various viewpoints. And then the third principle, which I think is really important, is to try your best while risking failure. And the idea is, if we're really pushing ourselves to do our best, even if that means we fail, and we're doing that collectively, respectfully, and honestly, we can then push towards the other important piece, which is that mission that we all share. And I'm a big mission person, the mission of being able to put everything together so that we have that common destination or that common goal, I think can really give people, hey, where are we trying to get to? And then as a group, we can figure out the best way to get there. So I think the guiding principles and that kind of unifying mission really is the key for any group involved.
Chris, when we were first chatting about this podcast, you said something very interesting, which is that your customer success team that works directly with the school districts and teachers are all, or almost all, former teachers. And then you obviously have a developer team full of computer engineers, computer scientists. Those are very 2 different demographics, different interests, different educational backgrounds. How do those 2 groups work together, and how do you help them work together effectively?
I think that's a process. I think it's really being able to establish, what are the roles and responsibilities of each, but then also being able to allow them to build that equity and trust amongst each other. Because when all of a sudden you are in a battle or a situation and you are able to get through it and solve a problem together, it's pretty amazing. All of a sudden you build that trust. It's not overnight. It's not something that all of a sudden just happens. It really comes from intentional times and intentional collaboration. And I think in the past, when we were in office, we were all together. So we'd get together and it was something you could do. Now that we're remote, we try to do it with, we use Slack and Zoom with various Slack channels. And we try to hey, if there is a situation, not that we ever want one, but if all of a sudden there is a bug or an issue, we really want a pairing to happen. Let's get that developer on with that client success person, because they'll be able to really talk to those use cases, talk to the value, talk to, hey, what's really happening here? And it's those interactions that I think take a diverse group of individuals in their thinking and in their background and allow them to come together. And that diversity actually pushes us forward in a really cool way.
That's awesome. Chris, I want to share this personal story with you. Hopefully it doesn't get cut from the podcast, but I mentioned in the beginning having a son who is making a transition out of traditional middle school to an academy where they do their sport in the morning and then the afternoons are for academics. Well, This week, he came home and I walked into the kitchen. He's having a conversation with his mother, and it turns out he's not happy. He's not happy at the school, and it's not the sport, it's the technology. It's the platform that they're using. Apparently, he's having a hard time using it and he just feels lost. And I'm just curious, like, I'm sure you've seen students left behind, and I know for you, the student is the reason why you show up every day, right? I had a call today with the head of schools and I felt a little bit better, but I'm still kind of like, you know what? If he's not happy, because obviously happiness is what's most important for me. But I'm, if he's not happy there, I'm willing to take him and put him back in the traditional school if that's going to make him better. I don't know. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts around this. I'm sure you do.
I do. So 2 questions. How old is he, and when did school start?
Yep, he's 13. He started a week ago.
So I think that my advice, and again, 2 cents. I always tell people my advice is 2 cents. Throw it away if you don't like it. 13 is always an interesting age, right? I was a 7th grade social studies teacher, so 12, 13 was like exactly the age that I don't know what it was. I always found middle school to be such a really cool time. So it's also a time of transition where they're trying to figure out what are they really good at? What are they willing to actually put themselves out there? I think that's always a really difficult thing where they're just beginning to learn, or that self-consciousness is really taking over. They might feel it younger, but they can usually like burst through it. I would put it into, is it hockey? Does he play hockey? What sport? I was assuming hockey.
Yeah.
I would put it into hockey terms. Like if you're trying to learn a new skill and it's been a week and you have just been practicing it for 3, 4 times, 5 times, you're probably not going to put it into a game yet. You're probably not going to put it out there yet. The question is, like, do you see the reason to why this is happening? It's like, I don't know hockey as well, so I'll have to use basketball. But if you're trying to really work on being able to go both ways, right hand, left hand, you might have to shoot left-handed layups. You might have to try to finish with your left hand. You might miss. I had a former player who in 7th grade, I told him when he was on the left side, he was really tall for his age. I was like, I want you to try to shoot left-handed. I want you to try to use both hands. And it was amazing because in 7th grade, it's like risk-free. Like, anybody going to remember your 7th grade record? He got a little bit ridiculed because he didn't finish great around the rim. If he went with right hand, he would have probably never missed. But I was like, no, you got to do both hands. Fast forward, as a high schooler, he was all conference. Why? He had the best left-handed hook shot in the entire conference. And it was all because of his willingness to put himself out there. And so, long story, all my stories are long, it seems. But for your son, I would ask, like, again, it shouldn't be about the technology. I have a lot to say about that. Like, education should be about the connection, and the technology should be seamless so that the technology is not a friction. But is the struggle something that they think they're going to overcome and be is going to be short term, or is this a long term issue? Do you see the reason and the objective to what they're trying to do, and is it going to pay off in the long run? Because sometimes those short term pain is going to result in long term gains.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Our situation is that he thrives in a social environment. He's a very social kid. And this was my biggest concern, him moving from a traditional school to essentially an online environment where each kid is in their own isolated space looking at a screen. And I was all for it. I'm all for new ways of doing things. And so this is something that I guess, we're going through the motions now. And I think partially it's so soon. Maybe he's going through that transition involves, missing what he had before. He's got his friends messaging him. And so I think that's all part of it. I think the technology piece is the excuse right now because it can't be that bad.
Again, now I feel like I'm going to be talking both sides of my mouth. That, to me, that anecdote, that situation is why teaching and learning is something that I don't think technology is ever going to fully replace. Because if we all were just intrinsically motivated ourselves, we would learn anything. One of my favorite interview questions is, what's something that you don't know but want to learn, and why haven't you learned it? Because I can list a ton of things. I've been trying to learn to speak Spanish for 20 years. And I just I get a little bit better, but it's like slow going. Like, why can't I fully dedicate to this? And it really is that collective. It's hard to be in a gym or on an ice rink by yourself training for that long. You can do it for bursts. I'm not saying, but like that collectiveness for many people, not everybody. There are those who are really individually able to do it. But so much of what we do is that community. And if that's lost, it's hard to really have that motivation to burst through or to overcome things that I say. Like I used to tell my students is learning is an action that requires effort. And it's something that's not easy. So it's like, are you going to put in the effort? And sometimes if you don't have it, it's hard to get motivated.
That's great. No, I appreciate the advice and the insights. Again, this is a hot topic right now for me and my family. So appreciate it. And sorry to steal the time.
No, this is I think those are very apt. I think it's talking about how do you really address education? How do you address motivation? I think they're great topics.
Chris, do you think you'll ever go back to being a teacher?
That is the question of my household. I believe I will. I truly do. I think that once I see Otus through, and I don't know how long that'll take, as we talked about, it seems like it's both been a blur, but also been quite a bit of time. I really do enjoy. Right now, I get escape and being able to connect with kids when I get a coach. I get to coach all 4 of my kids in soccer and basketball, and those are the moments that there's nothing more powerful than when you unlock an aha moment with a kid. I don't know what it is about it, but the energy is just absolutely unbelievable you get when a kid has been struggling with something and then it just clicks and all of a sudden you can just see the pure joy that they have. And while that's fun to do with adults, like it's fun to help facilitate in their career growth, it's much more pure with a kid. They can't hold it in. It's just really a cool moment. So I predict yes, but I don't know when.
You said earlier in the episode that being a teacher is a lot about connecting to your student, which made me think that being a leader or team builder is a lot of connecting with your teammates, right? In sports, is with kids or in business. Is it the same or is it very different connecting to the kids you used to connect with and the adults you're trying to connect with today?
I see more similarities than differences. I think that, clearly adults are different than kids, but for the right or the wrong of it, I've brought the same mentality and mindset to being able to build a culture in a classroom, to being able to build a culture of a company, and that really does come from connecting. Does come from, even though this podcast might not show it, listening and learning. I think it's really important to take every moment you can to listen and to learn. And with those lessons, you can make improvements, because if you make every day a little bit better, if you seize the opportunity of today, then you can learn from your mistakes. Again, risk failure, but get better. And I think over time, you really can show the people you work with, your coworkers, that you're invested for the right reasons to that right goal. Again, I'm very simple, back to that mission. We're driving to the same destination. And you're going to make a misstep. You're going to make mistakes, but then you can overcome it. Like there were times where I would try things in my classroom, trying to teach certain, topics, or I would venture out and it was all of a sudden, well, that didn't work. And all of a sudden it's like, well, what do you do? And the same things happened as a leader in the company. I have made many a mistake, but we're very honest about what those are. We don't want to make the same mistake twice.
You own a lot of the culture and thinking about culture and building it. Do you have someone on your HR team or people team helping you, or how do you handle that?
So we outsource our human resources for payroll and operations and things like that. We have an amazing controller who's in-house who really helps with financials. In terms of culture, in terms of how to be able to build it within our company, I don't like to say I own it, but I do like to say I closely monitor it and I drive it. And it's something that I feel is my responsibility to monitor. I never want to take full credit though, or even most credit, because I think the culture is really built, really fortified by the people and the teams. I'm not in their daily stand-ups. I'm not in their daily meetings. But if I can connect to individuals, if I can connect to teams, and I can listen and learn and help remove obstacles so that we have a culture built on the principles that are the same, but the implementation, the how, I want it to be slightly different. A couple of our development teams are spread between 3 time zones. They have to work slightly different than some of our other teams. Some of our other teams are much more centrally localized because a lot of us were in Chicago to start. We have an optional happy hour in Chicago. Awesome. We have about 25 of our employees here in Chicago. It's great to be able to get together, but we recently had one in New York. I wasn't there, but I had a couple amazing, coworkers who were all of a sudden like, hey, we want to get together. Of course, get together, build that equity, break bread, share a drink. So I think it's something I closely monitor, but I think the actual building and use of it goes to each and every individual because they're the ones who are really living it every single day. And one of the old quotes my coach used to tell me, and I'm probably going to mess it up, is your true character is revealed when no one is watching. He used to always tell me that when I was working out. He's like, the fall is going to know if you worked out in the summer. And I believe the same is true with the teams. I'm not micromanaging the teams. So it's important for them to feel that culture. And I'll have check-ins, I'll have pulse checks, but they have to really own it and live it.
It's the same in your case. It's culture or your principles are truly tested when you're not there, right? If people are only honest with you and respectful with you, well, that's not culture. That's called, kissing ass, right? It's
Yes.
like when things go wrong between 2 people that they can be honest and respectful, even though they feel embarrassed and shy and blame each other and whatnot. It's those little threads, I feel like, that make up the culture versus this one giant declaration that now everyone has to follow through with.
Yes, you said it better than I did, and much more simply than I did. But that's exactly right. When it's owned by the threads, it's going to work way better.
That's awesome. Let's talk about gratitude. As you know, Chris, with our platform, HeyTaco, everyone has 5 tacos to give each day. And you can give those tacos to someone to recognize them for something they've done or to show your appreciation or to simply put a smile on someone's face. Chris, who are you giving your 5 tacos to today and why?
So I did my research. I want to use a taco confetti sticker because I don't want to give just 5 tacos. And the stickers are some of the best pieces of it. And I thought a lot about this because I was like, taco giving is really powerful. I've been amazed at how powerful it is. We use them in 2 really cool ways. We have a props channel that's a public Slack channel where people can really show their appreciation, their gratitude. And that gratitude can go from problem solving around, some of our initiatives or for being just, to use a term on someone of our team, if they're having a dumper day and they need to be lifted out, they're just having a day where they just feel like they're bumming around. They can just have that ear. And to be able to show that gratitude for that wide range is really amazing. For me, I can't single out 5 people.
That's awesome. I love that.
I love the research that you did, Chris. No, that was pretty clutch how you pulled that out of your hat. We've never had that happen, Doug, have we?
No.
So I could list everybody, but I didn't think that'd be fair.
Everyone gets a taco.
Everyone gets a taco.
That's the rule.
That's awesome. Well, Chris, thank you for the endorsement. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for all your support.
Oh, thank
really
you.
Appreciate it.
You all have been huge help to us. Honestly, being a fully remote company, your ability to make people feel like they are being seen for their appreciation and gratitude has really been a big driver in our ability to remain remote and to continue to grow. So I really appreciate all you, from your support to your improvements. So I appreciate all that.
Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thanks for listening. One of the important things about building a team is gratitude. If you're looking to add more gratitude into your team, check out HeyTaco.com. We are clearly biased, but it really does work. Use the code AMAZINGTEAMS to receive 15% off for the first 3 months of your subscription.